yesterday Hyperliquid was at risk to get fully liquidated up to the entire $230 million that were in the HLP vault. So I'll try to break down what happened, and then we'll go into some of the commentary on the timeline. There was a trader who opened a massive, massive short position on the Jelly token, which is one of the meme coins we already had talked about. It did see a very, very solid run when it was still this season, but faded into being irrelevant. However, he opened a short position, couple million, more relevant, up to 40% of the token supply on the futures platform. And then what the trader did in his next step is basically he got himself liquidated. And in the case of Hyperliquid, what then happens is that Hyperliquid's liquidity pool, the HLP pool, is taking over that position. That is basically the liquidity provider, which you have used, which I have used, which many people have used to deposit some USDC into it. And suddenly, this pool now has a massive, massive short for the Jelly token. And the next thing that then happened is that basically that trader allegedly tried to then pump the price of that Jelly token massively, and to get it to an and he got it up like to a 3 or 4x even of what it traded before. And the goal there was to pump it so much that Hyperliquid, who now had to take on the short position, would have been liquidated on the short. And again, if they were liquidated and the token would have pumped so much, they would have risked almost the entire liquidity that was in the pool, which people realized pretty quickly. So the community, or not the community, some of the depositors started to remove liquidity from the HL pool already, which then again also had an impact on the liquidation price. And what then happened is that as this basically short squeezing action trying to liquidate Hyperliquid was going on, Hyperliquid's validator set intervened pretty quickly, and they voted to delist the Jelly.
Just one thing before that, Legendary. Wasn't there something about the centralized exchanges listing the token in a way that was almost encouraging positive price action, right? So the goal here seemed to be to pump the price to get the Hyperliquid vault liquidated. And just before this intervention that you were just about to say, the certain centralized exchanges listed. What exactly do they list? I'm not 100% sure.
There were both like listings as well as rumors that it will get listed on Binance or on other exchanges as well. So this narrative was also basically evolving at the same time, which kind of would have been bullish for obviously the Jelly spot price, and then as a result of that, negative for the short position that Hyperliquid had on. So Hyperliquid had to react pretty quickly, and the validators did so, delisted the Jelly futures from the platform as a result of this suspicious trading activity. Hyperliquid has also made a statement on that, where they confirmed exactly that. And what they also did is they forced the settlement of this Jelly position at $0.0095, which was trading, and that was like one of the criticisms or reactions to that, massively under the market value, just to avoid being fully liquidated in the pool. And as a result of that, basically, we've seen two things happening. One is that the Hyperliquid vault, and you can see a dent in there, once where it was unfolding, was down 12 mil at some point, but has fully recovered from that. But also the Hyperliquid price clearly was impacted as a result of that as well. It is still down almost 12% over the last 24 hours. So just to sum it up, trader had a massive short, got liquidated to push the short to Hyperliquid. Then there was a coordinated action going on to try to pump the price and get Hyperliquid liquidated and basically risk the entirety of the funds, the 200 something mil that were deposited at that time.
Excellent summary. As you said, pretty complicated stuff. And there have been interesting and important reactions coming out of this. I think Hyperliquid has been, its risk management and reputation, there's like, I guess, a question mark against that, in the sense that it needs to have, I think, it needs to have things in place to mitigate for these types of things. And I think that's the first question. And then there's also a whole host of questions going on about the centralized exchanges' roles in this. We saw multiple centralized exchange CEOs coming out yesterday, kind of in a relatively coordinated fashion, talking about Hyperliquid in a very derogatory way, very negatively. I think we had the OKX CEO do that, saw the BitGet CEO do that, possibly others too. And this is how, if you had to steelman the other side, because I think there's a lot, there are two sides to this. I think on the one side, you have maybe a lot of crypto Twitter potentially, and you have people who maybe are Hyperliquid fans. Maybe Hyperliquid has made them a lot of money, and they're saying, look, centralized exchanges are worse. Hyperliquid is not perfect, but we like want to support Hyperliquid as an alternative to centralized exchanges. On the other side, you've got the centralized exchanges whose position I think can probably be best summarized with this tweet that was in a thread with conversation with Zach XBT and the founder of DeFi Llama, where it seems to be the case that Hyperliquid, basically, this is the position that the other side would take. Hyperliquid want the perks of decentralization, which means something like no oversight, no accountability. But in the end, they made a centralized move when it suited them. What was that centralized move specifically? It was the move to settle the short at a price which was not the market price. If they had done it at the proper market price, they would have lost loads and loads of money. They, in a centralized way, decided they were going to settle it at a non-market price. In the end, that loss moved over to the trader, right? It went back to the trader.
With an important caveat, yes, centralized decision to settle under the market, but in an official statement, Hyperliquid also did say that they've basically flagged the addresses who lost money as a result of that, and those addresses will be made whole from the Hyper Foundation. So yes, they did settle to contain the damage, and yes, there's obviously losses that people incurred as a result of that. It's still a centralized move that does not change the fact of that, but those people, I think it's important to add for context, will be paid out from the Hyper Foundation.
Okay. That is helpful context, but I think it's worth going through these like different, because there was a few interesting takes in this thread of like how people were reacting to it. The founder of DeFi Llama said, in my opinion, the explanation for why the centralized exchanges helped Bybit when Bybit obviously got hacked not so long ago for more than $1 billion, but ganged up on Hyperliquid is simpler. After the FTX failure, the whole of crypto market went down and confidence in crypto tanked. So they want to avoid a repeat of that systemic risk, and they see the Hyperliquid HLP as an isolated risk. So if people are wondering, well, why would you help Bybit when they got completely wrecked the other day, when they were hacked for more than $1 billion? And why would you go after Hyperliquid? Well, I think the numbers are different. Like, one is significantly bigger. One would maybe have more lasting implications for the industry. Whereas I guess they're thinking, this is his position anyway, their thinking is this is a more isolated thing. I think I maybe lean towards the Zach take though, which was just underneath, where he said previously centralized exchange teams faced billion-dollar fines and even jail time by regulators for weak compliance early on. Hyperliquid has recently seen the same illicit flows, has said they are decentralized, so cannot do anything. Now, Hyperliquid made a centralized decision with few validators that control the majority of the stake to quickly close the position at an arbitrary price for an entity using the protocol as intended. So I think that's part of the point. So probably feel a bit wrong seeing the attention on crypto Twitter brought to them while making centralized decisions like you did without the same consequences. I think that's what is at its core. And someone said in the comments before they'd be interested in my legal take on it. I'm definitely not giving a legal take here just because I was a lawyer at one point in time in the past. But I think if you're thinking about it from a business perspective, it becomes hard to look. Money laundering is a thing that people are not allowed to permit. And if you are a centralized exchange, I suspect you have all kinds of regulations which say you need to do X, Y, and Z in order to make sure that these funds are not going through your wallet. And if they are identified, you're going to have a whole host of things that you need to do. So I'm sure, look, money laundering happens everywhere, to be clear. Money laundering happens in your favorite banks on the high street, or everywhere. But when it does happen, then there's a bunch of things that you are compelled to do in order to mitigate it and to make sure the right thing is done, whatever that might be. And I think the position here is, if you want to be able to say that you can't do something when, you know, some other illicit funds are going through your protocol because you're decentralized, and you know, because you're decentralized, you can't comply with certain regulations in the way, or you don't have to comply, then you can't necessarily use that as a get out clause when something goes wrong. Um, and then say, well, actually, we do have the power to take further action here because we can, get our validators together and kind of make a quicker decision. So that's the alternative perspective, which I think will actually have merit for the people who are regulating. I don't know the specific legal ways that Hyperliquid are presenting themselves. I'd need to look, all legal things you need to look at in like significant detail to get on top of precisely how people are presenting themselves, exactly what regulations they need to be complying with. Is not possible to say that unequivocally on a show after reading up on it over the night. But that would be the position of why they are maybe coming under criticism, and why it might not be super straightforward for them moving forward.